July 13th, 2022 Civil Service Commission meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Karen?
Here.
Commissioner MacCarley?
Present.
Commissioner Astorian?
Here.
Chair Haratunian?
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Gazarian is absent.
Thank you. What's next?
Minutes for the meeting of June 13, 2022.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Next item, please.
I'll take that with unanimous consent. Next item is oral communications. We have none.
All right. Next item.
Recruitment and examination report.
All right, Ms. Martin, welcome back.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, this is the regular recruitment and examination status report, which represents the current recruitments in process. Our staff is currently working on approximately 68 different recruitments, and the report reflects the various stages of each of those recruitments. We have been working on a couple key executive recruitments in the last few months, and this past Monday we conducted the examination process, the selection process for fire chief, and we are currently working on finalizing the dates and logistics for the director of community development, so more to come on that. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Have any questions?
Just a quick question. When I look at the examination report, there are identified closure dates when applicants must submit the appropriate paperwork. But there are various numbers of days that separate the opening date from the closing date. Is that based upon the significance of the position or the difficulty in soliciting candidates? Or is there some methodology that's applied to determine whether the closing date is 1 week from the opening date or 2 months from the opening date?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Commissioner MacCarley, that's a great question. The opening and the closing date is largely dependent on the type of position. Some of the classifications, some of the positions that we recruit for are open on a continuous basis, such as the recreation series, the facility attendance series, and other similar classifications. There are other positions where we will have a closing date, and upon evaluation of the applications, if a determination is made that we need a little bit more time to be able to capture additional qualified candidates, then we will extend that closing date. But typically our minimum posting period is for a 2-week period.
Any other questions? I have a quick question about the examination for the fire chief. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this. Do we know the number of candidates we have in the pool or no?
We do know there were, in our next report, we will report the actual numbers. We are still in the middle of our appeal process, but I can tell you that the selection process included a full day's worth of candidates. And we received a number of candidates, and we needed to reduce it to the most qualified that we were able to advance to a full day's worth of interviews this past Monday.
Okay.
Additional information will be in next month's report. I only don't share it because we're in the middle of that appeal process.
I understand. And sometimes I don't know the types of questions I'm allowed to ask. I'm just
Certainly.
curious.
If I may, so then subjectively it was well received by the community that may have been applicants.
Commissioner Astorian, I would agree with that statement. We did receive a number of applicants from within the nearby area, as well as some from out of state. And we needed to evaluate those and identify those candidates whose qualifications more closely matched what we were looking for in the city of Glendale.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you. What's the next item?
Eligible list established.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, the subject before the Commission is the regular report that includes all of the eligible lists that were recently established since our last meeting. The report includes the total number of applications and the number of individuals that advanced through the various examination processes for said position. Since our last meeting, we've had a total of 11 lists that were established. 1 was open, 5 were promotional, and another 5 were open and promotional. This is a note and file item. However, if the commission has any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. MacCarley?
Speaking not directly to you, Ms. Martin, but certainly referencing the eligible list, it appears that the list has indeed, does that mean it's been established for the Chief Human Resources Officer?
Yes, Commissioner MacCarley, the list has been established for Chief Human Resources
Down to 3.
Officer. There were 3 individuals who ultimately were placed on the eligibility list and advanced to final hiring interviews with our city manager. And the city manager has made an appointment, but we are in the final stages of that process, so I don't believe there's any information that can be shared at this time.
Certainly, we won't breach confidentiality, but thank you for your response.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Martin. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, executive assistant.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the subject before the commission is the newly established class specification for the position of executive assistant. On June 14th, the City Council approved the establishment of the executive assistant class specification to address proposed changes to the organizational structure within the city manager's office. This position will serve as an office manager and provide support to executive level staff. In the case of the city manager's office, the position will provide support to the city council, serve as office manager in the city manager's office, and provide administrative support to not only the city manager, but also the deputy city manager and the executive management team. Due to the generic nature of this classification, other departments may also utilize this classification if they have similar needs. We're generalizing classifications where possible. This is a management level position, and as such, the Glendale Management Association has been given an opportunity to review the class specification, and they have not expressed any concerns. Our Chief Information Officer, Elena Babolian, as well as Russ Kwan from our staff are available to answer any questions the commission may have.
Any questions? Yes.
I am looking at the specifications, and I could say that I am delighted on the second page, page 10 in the packet, that this executive assistant can in fact serve as a secretary to this board. Would that be correct?
Commissioner MacCarley,
And when assigned to the city manager's office, may serve as secretary to boards or commissions. That is greatly appreciated if in fact that means what it says, because we could certainly incorporate the assistants, especially in the challenges that I know we will face in the next year.
Good evening, Civil Service Commissioners and Commissioner MacCarley. That line item was included because in the city manager's office, there are a number of commissions that fall within that department, specifically the Sustainability Commission, the status on the Commission on the Status of Women, and then more recently we had the Blue Pension Review Committee. And so that was in there intended to serve commissions that support the city manager's office. In terms of your commission, I think that would fall more under HR and any administrative or any type of assistant positions that fall under the Human Resources Department. If this classification was used in HR, then certainly.
I suggest there's an opportunity for negotiation here, because one of the challenges that we faced, we do not want to overload and tax our Human Resources Office, and I am, although I cannot speak for my fellow commissioners, do see a real need for staff assistance, not all the time and not in any great depth, but there are a couple of issues that come up, often related to such things as perhaps identification of employee issues, in which employees come to seek the assistance of this board, and we have no frame of reference whatsoever, including the manner in which the requests for assistance are articulated to this board. So I know that this is a decision made at the highest levels of the city as to the identification and the reporting responsibilities for this secretary to boards. And I'm not so sure at this particular moment that you can modify it, although the language here is not appended with the remarks and the comments that you made or the answers to my questions. So presumptively, we could ask, I suppose, for that level of executive assistance if, as I foresee in the next 12 months, we undergo what we are considering a close scrutiny of the class specification system in this city in order to reduce the cost associated with employment. And that will be one of the initiatives that we will certainly discuss. We've touched upon it, and we look forward to a very robust and busy 12 months. So we are looking for staff assistance.
Okay.
Chair, if I may. And, yeah, and you could correct me if I'm not right? And don't feel bashful about it. Didn't this come up because of the request that was made on the dais for each council member to have some sort of an assistant or no? Okay.
So the purpose of you seeing this new classification tonight is we had a vacancy created in our office recently, and the title that was previously used was Executive Assistant to City Council. However, since I've moved to the city manager's office and I'm overseeing this function truly is a multi-player, right? They don't just support the city council, they're also supporting the city manager, deputy city manager, and as Ms. Martin stated, the other department directors, because there's a lot of meeting coordination that takes place. So the title, as it was written, was not correct because they aren't just supporting the city council, and they are truly supporting the entire office. And the office manager component of it is truly making sure all of the administrative, all of the public counter component parts are taken care of. The request that you're referring to, Commissioner Astorian, is something that is on my list of items to tackle, and it's essentially looking at administrative support for the city council members. So that is something that is separate.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner MacCarley?
Yeah, I have a quick, office manager for me means they manage the office and no one is above them besides besides the city council. I mean, besides the city manager. I'm wrong with that, right? I mean, that's what an office manager is when they manage the office, but that's not what the function of this person is going to be.
Right, when I say office manager in this case is making sure the coverage, making sure we have staff coverage, during business hours. And so making sure just day-to-day coordination stuff is taken care of. So we are asking a lot of this position, and if you've noticed over the years, it's kind of a theme. As we've reduced our workforce, we are asking employees to do more, and this is one of those examples where in the past we used to have someone that fully supported the council, someone that fully supported the city manager, and even someone that supported the assistant and deputy city manager. Since we've shrunken our workforce, we're asking someone to do essentially all of those things.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just a point of clarification. If it's not going to serve all boards and commission, maybe we should say may serve as a secretary to specified boards and commissions or specific boards and commission. This way, then board and commissions don't think that they're going to have secretaries coming in and assistants coming in helping every single board member. So maybe some change to the wording there, just so it would make it clear that they're not, serving all boards and commissions.
I would strongly echo my fellow commissioners' suggestion, because as of this date, it appears that we would, if we were to refer back, make a request specifically for staff assistance for some issue that we feel is demanding of an investment of human capital, human resources, a staff member to assist us. So it will be clear to us and our successors that the only boards that are the beneficiaries of staff assistance happen to be the three that you've identified. Of course, that raises all sorts of issues. Are those boards of greater significance in the hierarchy of city administration and advisement because they are under the city manager versus boards that certainly have a relationship to departments but appear not to have the same sort of staff assistance? An interesting conundrum, interesting question.
I will say, since this position does fall in the city manager's office, at the discretion of the city manager can place employees where the need is. So I think under that, the scenario you mentioned would be captured. But I see Ms. Martin nodding about the amendment to specifying the board and commission, so.
Am I correct to have heard you that this position or the person that would be occupying the position is going to be discharging duties that at a point in time 3 different people used to do?
Essentially.
And could you explain to me how is that efficient?
Sure. I mean, obviously, our work has changed over the last 20 years, right? We have computer systems, we have more digital tools at our discretion. We're no longer sitting there handwriting notes to have a secretary transcribe it or type it up. We have a lot of tools that make us efficient, and so that's one of the reasons that we're able to combine these duties into one. But yeah, 20 years ago, there were 3 different people doing this function.
What about 7 years ago?
7 years ago, probably 2.
So in other words, the productivity has gone up so much so that you can get away with 1/3 of the staff for the work.
In some cases,
That's
yes.
what I'm hearing.
In some cases, yes.
In this case,
In this
my
case,
reference
yes.
is this case.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I think Ms. Martin was going to say something.
I was just going to echo the modification that we can make to reflect may serve as secretary to specific boards and commissions. And to Commissioner MacCarley's comment earlier, if there's any assignment that you wish be done for this commission, certainly that's something that through the chair we can have a discussion, and I can assign to appropriate staff within our department.
Motion to approve?
Just to be clear on the language, it says may serve as secretary to add the word certain boards and commissions?
I think we should specify the actual,
Yeah, go ahead,
Boards and-
Is that
Ms.
the word?
Warpedian, whatever you want to amend. I would move with the amendment noted by Ms. Warpedian.
is the amendment gonna just say to certain commissions or specify those specific commissions that
I
were?
would recommend not specifying. In the case of the Blue Ribbon Pension Committee, it's a one-time thing. There could be another commission
Okay.
created at a future time that's a one-time. So I would recommend keeping it more generic.
What
And
this opens up is an interesting question that we can address the city manager, and that is that if we were to request the city manager for additional staff assistance or the assignment or detailing of this individual to this board, then I presume that that would be at the discretion of the city manager.
Can I just make, Ms. McCall, I just want to make one thing clear for myself. The chief examiner is noted in the city charter as the secretary to
Correct.
the Civil Service Commission. So that's noted in a city charter. So, and then when I was in the commission a number of years ago, there was a vote to have the HR director act as the as the assistant to the Civil Service Commission. So technically, the HR director that sits here is really the chief examiner for the Civil Service Commission, as noted in the city charter. So the chief examiner, as the HR director, will then be, we can address issues to the chief examiner, the HR director, and then the HR director at that point, as the chief examiner, will request additional assistance from HR to assist her or him, whoever that person is at time to provide assistance to the chief examiner for Civil Service Commission, because when they sit here, they're not really the HR directors, they're really the chief examiners at that point,
And
per the city charter. So we can address the request to the chief examiner as the HR director, and then the chief examiner at that point will make a request from the city manager or the HR to provide additional support, but we do have an assistant or a secretary, which is playing two roles, so to speak. One is the HR director. The second is when she sits here, they are actually the assistant to the Civil Service Commission, and they're called chief examiner. And it's noted in the city charter that they are the secretary or the assistant to the Civil Service Commission.
And I think, as my distinguished colleague has indicated, the positions were at one time divided. Now, I was not sitting on this board at the point in time when a decision was made to consolidate, but to me, and this relates so that we have some relevancy in this discussion, is the ability of this board to proceed in several areas, whether it is to review very closely the civil service system in this city, and there might entail some immediate conflicts between that individual who serves at the pleasure of this commission and receives direction from this commission to proceed and come forth with an independent analysis of both the strength and weaknesses of the existing Civil Service Commission and the cost and benefits of the existing service versus the Chief Human Resources Officer, who has an obligation, of course, to the council and to the city manager to protect the integrity of the system as the system exists today. So while it's a subtle conflict, I'm willing to say that there's a potential conflict of interest. That's why, once again, to make everything make some sort of sense, the ability to request from somewhere, some entity, somebody who could assist us and is directly responsive to directions from our chair is an area that I would like to explore in the next couple of months. We're not there yet. This is commentary only. I think we've received the requisite responses that this executive assistant is supportive of only certain commissions and boards within that city. And at this point, I don't think we can go any further. But I do see that in the future, there is going to be a need for some sort of standing secretary or a detailed secretary and detailed staff to this board as we begin the process of very close examination of the civil service system.
If I can just clarify something, this line here was meant to be secretary in terms of taking minutes, taking roll call. That's the type of function I was referring to.
That's fine. Don't take it other than this is at a level which is of some significance, but I understand all the tremendous work that you have done, and you've provided the clarification, and this is not technically what would be in other constructs that administrative support with somebody at a very high level, managerial level, who operates independently at the direction specifically of our chair.
Was there a second to the motion?
Not yet.
Application.
I don't know if there was a motion.
I heard Mr. Perrin.
I moved it with the amendment by Ms. Warpetian, and if there's a second, then we can vote on it.
Then I will second that.
Can we have roll call?
Commissioner Perrin,
Yes.
Commissioner MacCarley,
Yes.
Commissioner Astorian,
Yes.
Chair Hartunian.
Yes. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, communication series.
Martin, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this item is also a newly established class specification for the communications series, which was recently established and approved by the City Council at its meeting on June 14th. This addresses the organizational restructuring of the Communications and Community Relations Division, also within the City Manager's Office. The division is responsible for citywide communication functions, including media relations, community engagement, community relations, and event coordination. Previously, the division included the classifications of Director of Communications and Community Relations, Public Information Officer, and Community Relations Officer. Since the essential functions and classifications and the needs of the division have evolved over time, this new series that includes the two classifications of Communications Manager and Officer better reflect what is needed in that division. This too is a management level position that is being proposed. Again, there are two classifications within the series. The Glendale Management Association has been given an opportunity to review the specifications and has not expressed any concerns. Chief Information Officer Elena Babolian, also Russ Kwan from our staff are available to answer any questions the Commission may have regarding this class specification series.
Questions, comments?
Yeah. Only, who is the proponency of this? Back in the hot chair or hot podium, or not necessarily? We truly appreciate your intense devotion to the city. But it is an interesting development for those of us who have spent some time as civil servants in various capacities. This is the first time I've seen the elimination of a PIO. Because classically, and I use that term specifically, classically, a PIO in most entities, whether it's a city or a state or even at the federal level, that is the public information officer. And for those from the outside, instantaneously, that term is recognizable. It means, and it's been that way for a long period of time, and it means that that is the person who is the front face forward of the agency or governmental entity that has a requirement to speak or to which questions can be addressed. So is this the basis? I'm just wondering what the underpinnings were to make, and the council, this I did read, and this is a council decision, so there must have been some sort of deficit or some sort of shortfall in the ability of Glendale to communicate its message, and therefore our good council, in a proactive manner, decided to transform these positions in order to more carefully and expansively communicate its message to the community? Is that what happened?
So essentially, the Civil Service Commissioners, our office had a vacancy. Our public information officer left the city in December. And so one thing that our city manager has asked us is, when things change, he's asked us to look at things from a fresh perspective, not to continue doing things the same way. And so the easy thing would have been just to not even look at the specs, to say we have a vacancy, let's go out and do a recruitment. But in looking at the public information officer specification, we noticed that some things needed to be revised just to bring them up to date in terms of all the digital marketing and digital communication that takes place now. And also, we had public information officer, we also had community relations coordinator, and then we had an executive level position that's no longer being used, and they all had different naming conventions. So this was an attempt to use similar naming conventions, communications manager and communications officer, but essentially the communications manager is the public information officer for the city. And so they're doing the same functions that you said. They are that main point of contact with the community. And so the role isn't changing that much. The titles or the series is just being called communications.
So there's a name change, but not any change with respect to responsibilities and authorities?
Correct, and we're just updating.
I shake my head. I guess that's certainly I have that ability to shake my head, not necessarily confused, and I'm certainly a proponent of advances in the civil service system to make it cost-effective and more efficient and delivering far higher quality of service to the members of our community. That said, I'm wondering, there is, my view is that there's going to be a potentially public inability to recognize the specific roles and functions of a communication manager, which is across the board inconsistent with the terminology used in most state agencies. I mean, you go downtown, it's the same situation.
Commissioner MacCarley, members of the commission. Let me try to take a stab at answering that particular
Sure.
question. It's a point well taken, and what we anticipate is that in case of an actual emergency where we're going to be in a situation to be speaking to members of the public, members of media, the police department as well as the fire department each individually have public information officers specifically tasked for that matter. Anybody in our communication series would really be, much deeper on the bench to get out front, get out in front of that. So in terms of who the media would go to get an answer, it would be a public information officer from the police department or fire, depending on who's managing that particular incident.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to belabor this, but to be somewhat inappropriate, so all the deployment jackets, or as we used to say, the raid jackets, will have PIO on the pasted on the back of the jacket?
Correct. If we were to go down to our EOC right now, it would still be PIO.
All right, so,
Yep.
but you've narrowed this, and this is what I was concerned about, you've narrowed it to those operational entities of our city, so the police department and the fire department, perhaps public service if we have a breakdown of water main, or one of our flood control mechanisms outside of LA County were to break and we'd have an avalanche of water and debris coming down. So, but those are agencies over the course of time have PAOs. So is this but I envision, and I can see, and I don't think I'm off base here, that the city itself will have, for instance, in a catastrophic event, whether it's a result of a law enforcement issue or something that we've seen just in the last couple of weeks around the country in terms of terrible things that have resulted in mass shootings, reflected in mass shootings, who is it that's going to be the spokesman for the city at the point in time when the camera crews from CNN and CBS and all of our social media outlets come to the steps of this city hall and demand answers to what took place in the city?
Again, fair question. I think it's situational. It depends on what the situation is, who the lead agency on that's going to be. If it's something involving police as a lead agency, and I don't want to pick certain things because we can go off on tangents here. You're going to see the face of the police chief, you're going to see their public information officer, and you're likely going to see the mayor and the city manager at the front of the steps of City Hall addressing this. Right. So those systems are currently in place. The community outreach, I'm sorry, what was the position title? The communication series, the positions in the communication series would play a support function to that. So we'd be working closely, that individual or those individuals would be working closely with the police PIO, the fire PIO, whoever the lead agency is, to work behind the scenes in getting press releases together, actually doing the legwork and assisting them in that process.
Yeah, I appreciate that last part of the comment, because that's the production of information and the tailoring and development, dissemination of information that is responsive to requests. But who's going to be sort of the chief overall big honcho PIO in this city when something really bad occurs?
Again, it's going to be the person. It's going to be the person who's managing the lead agency on that one. I mean, are you asking about the specific name of the person at this point?
No, never do that. In terms of a position, because you have a position, of course, the supportive functions you've clearly identified, appreciate all that, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But in the instances in which the city itself must speak, is that assignment given to the city manager? Is it given to you as the assistant or deputy city manager? Or is it delegated to, and it's very difficult because what we've addressed are those natural emergencies or man-made emergencies such as police functions and fires that call for a PIO from the department. But at some point, it's elevated to the city. Yes. If, in fact, there's an earthquake or something, as we saw in the news, where cities are inundated with reporters from around the world, who is it that speaks for the city?
So in that particular situation, I'm gonna qualify by saying we would likely have activated our emergency operations center. The city manager would be the incident commander on that particular situation.
So the city manager is the PIO?
No, not necessarily.
It's all right, you could say yes.
No, but they're not. There's another step to it. Okay. Under that particular command, even though the city manager is the incident commander and can speak on behalf of the city, we do have a public information arm, which is why I say if we went down to the EOC right now, you'd see PIO jackets down there. The person who would be filling that particular role for the overall city could very well be the communications manager, because communications is still managed, overall communications is still managed out of the city manager's office. Again, even in that situation, police and fire are also down in the EOC, and they're both going to have their PIOs, and we would have access directly to them as well. It's really going to be a group effort.
Mr. Chair, I just have a couple of comments. Thank you, Mr. Tecla. First of all, I want to say that it's been very refreshing for the past few months to see the city manager take the lead of change, so to speak. And we haven't had this type of solid leadership in a very long time. And I'm not just saying it because Mr. Gulani is sitting in the back, but I'm just saying it to the entire department. Thinking outside of the box is the way to go, and it's the only way to go. Because, we've done things for 20 years, and it's kind of worked, but it's not working as well as it could. Communications being one of them. As Mr. Tagalan just mentioned, it could be situational, depending on what the situation is. The person who's going to be speaking to the media will be a different person. Could be the mayor, it could be the police chief, it could be the fire chief, it could be, so that we don't have one person that's kind of taken over. I'm going to give information about everything in the city to everyone. It's situational based on that's what my understanding is, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Situational based on what's happening. You would have the person who's the most knowledgeable about that issue give information to whatever the outlet is. So if we have a police issue, the person most knowledgeable about the police items will come in. If it's a fire issue, the person most knowledgeable about the fire will come in, which is so great. It's so outside of the box. It's refreshing. So with that, I think it's the right approach. I like to see things change for the better, and change is not always good, but if it's changed for the better, it's definitely good. And looking forward to supporting more and more of this type of consolidation and that we can possibly do in the future, as many of them as we can, to basically do the right thing. And this is one that I'm very much in favor of. And what the city manager's office said, I support 100%. With that, if there are no changes, I'm sure there are comments.
Yeah, I have one more question from the deputy city manager, if I may. On the campaign trail, as well as when Councilmember Ellen Asturian was elected, one of her concerns was the way in which the city communicates with businesses as well as the residents, and the idea behind it was she was looking for clarity and consistency in that process. Would this approach, would this position address that?
I will say that it is a step in the right direction, most definitely. And I would say that since her election, we have actually had conversations with Councilmember Asturian, and we're looking to move directly in that direction. I think that she brought up a lot of good ideas during the campaign trail. She has a lot of them, even after the fact, obviously. I think it's going to be an iterative process. I think that there is no one-size-fits-all. We're going to try some different things. We're going to have to. But I do think that this lays the groundwork for being able to do all of that. We need to be flexible in what our approach is and what we look for in people that we're hiring in these positions, because times have changed. The way to communicate with the members of the public has changed. It's no longer about putting information out. It's about actually targeting the people you're trying to reach out to. And that might be different for each target audience, right? You're not going to be able to do it directly on social media for certain segments of the population that doesn't use social media. You may actually have to look at going out and interacting with them on a one-on-one basis. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit back to the roots of where we all sort of came from before it was so easy to communicate with the masses by hitting send on a phone somewhere. Sometimes what's old is new again. I think with all that said, what we're proposing is a step towards being able to do all of that I just described.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I don't know if the motion was made.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner MacCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner MacCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Astorian?
Yes.
Chair Hartunian.
Yes. Thank you. Next item, please.
Job bulletin for approval. Senior Park Services Manager.
Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the subject before the commission is the open job bulletin for the position of Senior Park Services Manager. The Senior Park Services Manager supervises and coordinates maintenance and construction activities within the Community Services and Parks Division, the Community Services and Parks Department, and the position also supervises staff to ensure quality control. Back in March of '22, a few months ago, this position was recruited for on a promotional basis and yielded a list of 2 candidates. Those 2 candidates were appointed to the position. However, the department has the need to fill an additional position at this time. And being that we just recently conducted a recruitment and that yielded the list containing 2 names, and those individuals were appointed at this time, the department is requesting to conduct an open recruitment. And as Commission is aware, since this position was previously recruited for on a promotional basis, the department is before the Commission at this time requesting that Commission approve the open recruitment. The Glendale Management Association has been notified of the department's request, since this is a management level position, and they have not expressed any concerns. Our Deputy Director of Community Services and Parks, Coco Panosian, is here to answer any questions the Commission may have, as well as our staff, Anaid Navarro, who worked on this item.
Thank you. Do we have questions?
Yeah,
MacCarley.
I do have a few questions. Hopefully they're
And I hope I have the
efficiently
answers.
delivered, and it is somewhat startling to me that we had only 2 candidates that survived the review process. Can you indicate, based upon your recollection, the number of candidates who applied? You can,
Ms. Martin-
specificity is not required. If you say
Correct.
a
I'm able
handful.
to answer that question. Yes, Chair Hartunian, members of the commission, yes, we had 4 internal candidates that applied.
40?
Four. Four internal candidates that applied for the position, of which 2 survived the oral panel, and we had a list of 2. We have currently 3 positions, and 2 are filled, and 1 is still vacant, which we're asking to continue conducting the recruitment on an open basis.
And of the 4, were all 4 employed within the Parks and Rec Department?
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner MacCarley.
All right, now we're moving into an area of some interest to me. Was there any restriction based upon the manner in which the specification was written, or the job bulletin was written at the time, that precluded or stopped an individual who was employed within, for instance, Public Works, or Water and Power, or Community Development, from applying for this position, which is basically a maintenance and construction supervisor?
That's a good question, Commissioner MacCarley. The specifications included horticulture experience that is necessary to conduct the work. Now, it didn't restrict anyone, but the requirement of knowing horticulture, knowing ball field management, project management on renovations of fields is a criteria that must be included in this classification, because the biggest job that we do, while managing individuals can go across the board, having the knowledge of the horticulture and the field management is critical to the success of the position itself. Hence, we felt comfortable proceeding with keeping those in the mix. The classification has been existent. It's an old classification that we didn't modify the actual specifications, and we felt very strong that the requirements we put in place are critical to the success of any candidate that takes the position. If, for example, anybody in GWP or Public Works had those experiences that are required within the document, they had the ability to apply, yet we only had 4 internal candidates apply, and we went through the process as we would.
All right, I certainly have to say this for the record. I appreciate your candidness. I would say that from a fundamental perspective, as it's emerging, as I look at things, I think that that creates sort of a restriction. And in many, many cases, it bars what could be deemed very able applicants from other departments to apply, with the expectation that the fundamental skills, that is, understanding construction and maintenance, would fulfill the immediate requirements of the job, and such things as perhaps understanding a seed or the name of a bush might come through the process of the job training, for instance, because what this does is it effectively narrows the range of candidates, and now there's no real criticism, but it has caused you, unfortunately, to expend your valuable time coming here. We're going through the process all over again, but I suspect if we had opened it up to community development, or, as I said, public works, or even water and power, there is some individual over there that could get very close to the skill set. And even if that person did not have the, during the course of the oral, was this an oral interview or written only?
It was oral.
Okay, so
Oral
that's
panel.
very valuable. So if you got 15 people, of which 2 or 3 were from your department, and all praise to you, this is no criticism, but 2 or 3 from your department, and you got the other 12 from Public Works, it's just that they would have the opportunity to try to impress you over the course of time with their knowledge and their ability to quickly acquire the requisite skills to satisfy the job. This is part of sort of our continued, our beginning examination of the class specifications that can be both valuable in terms of identifying job skills, but can be detrimental because they bar other individuals within the city from migrating between different departments, even if they have the fundamental, what I call the base skills. So that's my position. I'm not going any further than that. I think we would have an academic disagreement as to what are the fundamental jobs, and that's part of what I'm beginning to address as this examination with staff assistants and others, as we begin to drill down into the specifications and start eliminating a lot of those requirements that might indeed be deemed superfluous. But that's a conversation for another day.
Duly noted.
Yeah, I had a question for my esteemed fellow Commissioner MacCarley. Wouldn't it be true, though, that a skill requirement automatically basically curtails people without the skill to apply for the job? And isn't that what the process of hiring is? In other words, I'm trying to understand, and I understand your thoughts about expanding the field to be able to have more qualified people apply for it. But then, by definition itself, if you are enumerating a number of skills that is required for that job, you automatically are curtailing folks that don't have the same skills.
Yeah, you're reducing the pool, and I think what we're addressing, I should really seek the permission of the chair to respond to a question that was made directly. Chair, may I respond? But it's a different way of looking at civil service, and that is that if you narrow or make the classification specifications so narrow, you have effectively identified 1 or 2 people whom you look forward to applying, and one of whom will be successful. If you open the aperture and allow people from perhaps slightly different backgrounds to at least make application and get through the application gate, that is really through HR here, and let them come before the agency director, you sir, in the esteemed manner in which you manage your department, and let you have the opportunity to make that discriminating decision whether, for instance, using me as an example, Mark MacCarley, who has some construction and significant maintenance background, might indeed be the perfect candidate because of other attributes such as enthusiasm, intelligence, understanding of the newest techniques concerning how to put wash basins into our park system, all that might in fact give a different understanding and infuse your department with new blood, new ideas. It's just a different way, Commissioner, of looking at it. This is not just the battle that takes place here in Glendale. It's a big battle that is across civil service as people who are wrapped up in this have this argument about whether we've gotten too specific in civil service and basically precluded people from other departments within the very city that we manage from applying to a position and infusing you with 12 new candidates from DPW.
Got it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
Are you trying to widen the experience so you can apply?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that, my progression in my career.
He just did, he just applied, just gave all his strengths.
We have a sense of humor if anybody's looking at this on GT6. So appreciate everything that you said.
I move to approve.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner McCarrion,
Yes.
Commissioner MacCarley,
Yes.
Commissioner Storian,
Yes.
Chair Hartunian.
Yes. Thank you. Next item, please.
Adoption of resolution, report on unclassified status proposal for librarian.
Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is a request that is atypical. We don't often come to the commission requesting that classifications be deemed unclassified. However, this is a case where the Library Arts and Culture Department has received grant funding to make, and they're requesting to make 2 new librarian positions unclassified due to the nature of the funding source. The department received a grant which is to be used for the Public Librarian Diversity Residency Program. The program provides early professional job experiences that provide librarians from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups for long-term career success in public librarianship. The essential functions and responsibilities of the librarian position would be identical to the existing librarian. However, the librarians in this program would just receive additional mentoring, training, and other developmental opportunities. As part of this fiscal year budget, the 22-23 budget, the Library Arts and Culture Department requested and received approval to add these 2 librarian positions, which again would be funded through the grant. At this time, they would like to move forward with the recruitment process for the librarians, but prior to doing so, the Library Arts and Culture Department is seeking Commission's approval to make these 2 classifications unclassified. Employees hired as unclassified are not entitled to the traditional civil service protections. Given that these funding for these positions are through these funds that may not last for a very long period of time, if funding is discontinued, the employees would be separated without due process considerations. However, while they are employed, they would still receive the salary benefits and all of the other benefits, that accruals and such that the classified employees receive. If approved, the job bulletin would clearly articulate that these positions are unclassified so that candidates are aware at the time of application. And any action the commission may take will not impact our current librarians who are not funded through these grants. The librarian position is part of the GCA, the Glendale City Employees Association, which has been provided with the opportunity to review the proposal put forth, and they have not expressed any concerns. Our Assistant Director of Library Arts and Culture, Nicole Pacini, is here to answer any questions the Commission may have, as well as Ms. Anaid Navarro from our staff who also worked on this item.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. I understand Commissioner Akarian has a question.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments. About 14 years ago, we had a number of employees that were unclassified in the city. Roy Coleman, the former commissioner in the city, had a huge push because some of them worked as an unclassified employee for over 15 years, 16 years sometimes. And we actually brought all 20 unclassified and made them all classified at that point because people just continue doing unclassified work, not being afforded the civil service rights, and sometimes they work as much as, at that time, they work as much as 16 years sometime just being unclassified. Even though they get their benefits, even though they get everything else, it just didn't seem right. So we brought it all in, voted not to have any unclassified, not to have unclassified employees at that time. With that, I don't have a problem having an unclassified status due to funding by a particular federal agency or state agency, but I would like to make sure that if we vote on this project, that we keep it unclassified for only 3 years. And if it needs to be unclassified past the 3 years, that the department has to come back to us and request that the item be put in on the agenda again and be unclassified again. This way, then, there is some control over the, so I see here that it's a 3-year residency librarian position, and I'm willing to, I'm okay in approving it for 3 years as an unclassified, but anything past those 3 years, if it's gonna go past the 3 years, I would like to have the department come back to us for us to approve an additional timing based on what the funding would be at that time.
Thank you, Commissioner Abkari, and thank you for the history also, and it's important to know and where your comments are coming from, and I appreciate that. Any other comment?
Yeah, can we incorporate what Commissioner Abkarian has addressed so well as an amendment to, let's see, this is really an adoption of a resolution. So this is submitted, we vote to budget it. I think based upon the fact that we are asked to vote on a resolution, we would have the authority to incorporate Commissioner Abkarian's limitation on the term of this unclassified position, and I'd be willing, I'm no Scribner, but would add an additional sentence or so that would provide that level of protection to that person who finds him or herself in the position of librarian.
I would agree with that, but just as,
May I offer some suggested language? On the resolution that's on page 29, the second complete paragraph starts that 2 budgeted salary positions of librarian be hereby declared unclassified and exempt from the classified service for a period of 3 years. I think that addresses the 3-year
I would certainly
timeframe.
feel that
And I
that
think,
hits the objective.
but I think there was a response that was going to come in with regard to the request itself, or we were okay with that?
Well,
Okay.
there was I don't know if you were going to make Mr. Navarro was going to make a comment. If not, then we're good.
I have a question, I guess, about the funding, and it relates to this, and I certainly agree with this limitation, but I'm just wondering, the funding that we currently have, is that even going to be enough to employ these people beyond 3 years? Or are we gonna continue to apply for such funding?
Chair Hartunian, members of the commission. So the current grant is for 1 year only. We will be requesting additional grant funds from the California State Library for this project, with the idea that we're developing this program over a number of years to create a model that other libraries can use. We're also looking at other grant funding sources that could continue it beyond this first year. So that's the status of the
So
funding.
potentially you could keep doing that for 10, 15 years.
Yes, although I would say the purpose of the residency program is to be a good, solid first job for new librarians from underrepresented groups. And so we would not keep the same person in the residency program beyond 3 years. We would want them to move into a standard position, a normal position.
Yeah, but if somebody could come into that same position, we move somebody else, if it's still unclassified, somebody else could come and take that position and continue it for 3 more years.
We could, if the program is successful and we're able to continue funding. Yeah, that would be a possibility.
I just don't want, I personally am completely against unclassified employees. The protection that they need to get, I understand the funding issue. That's dear to my heart, and I understand it. And I was just told that there's a funding only for 1 year, and we're gonna approve this for 3 years.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense to me, unless if we are that confident that we're gonna get the funding for the next 3 years. If you tell me, and I have no knowledge of library or library funding, so I'm basically relying on your expertise that you're going to have funding for 3 years without a doubt. If that's the case, I guess I'm okay with it, but now we just found out that the funding is only for 1 year, and I wouldn't mind having it unclassified for just 1 year and then having them reapprove it again if there's funding for it.
So I think we have a
I
comment.
think we have a proposed amendment, if you would incorporate that, or I'll move that we incorporate the 3-year limitation on.
There's a question.
May I
about
respond,
that.
may I respond to your
Yeah.
inquiry, Commissioner Abkarian? The position itself is being declared unclassified for 3 years. The funding is for 1 year. So at the end of the 1 year, if the person, there's no more funding, that person would be terminated. The plan is to continue to get the funding because I understand it's a 3-year program, and they'd like to make sure that the person goes through a 3-year program to get to the completion of the program, and they may find other ways to fund it. This just assures, the 3 years assures that it comes back to the commission. If the nature of the position is going to change into a more permanent program that allows for someone to transition beyond the 3 years to a different process. So I think it hits, the proposed amendment addresses your concern. If the position is such that at some point it'll be necessary for it to be a classified position, at the 3-year mark, one way or the other, there's going to be a report back to the commission to address that issue.
There's a question by Commissioner Sturgeon.
Yeah, I'm confused here. The PLDR, it says, will consist of 2 3-year residency librarian positions. This does not commensurate with does not hold hands with the time period of the grant, is what you're telling me? Because there is nowhere here in this communication says that the grant is for 1 year.
Typically, the city tries to piece together grant funds. They are for 1 year, and then they're successful in getting a second year. If they're unable to get the grant, they might request it through general fund. They may have salary savings. So the funding doesn't necessarily go with the nature of the program. But they've identified funding for at least a year, and so I think that's probably why they've started the program in this way.
So you have it for 1 year, but we're not so sure for the second, third, yet you are making provisions for 2 3-year terms.
Yes, this, the program is, we're basing it on a successful model from academic libraries where someone will come into a residency position that is multiple years with the idea they spend the first year learning about the job, the second year, doing some new projects, getting more experience, and the third year really preparing to, promote into a standard position in that organization or elsewhere. So we're really structuring it based on what we've seen has been successful in academic libraries.
So my understanding is you have a structure that works. You have the first floor, and you're hoping to get to the third floor.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
with that, since nobody has addressed the amendment, I will, and that is that I would move to amend the resolution to incorporate the limitation of 3 years. That amendment to read as the second paragraph, the 2 budgeted salary positions of librarian be hereby declared unclassified and exempt from the classified service for a period not to exceed 3 years.
Second.
We have a roll call?
Commissioner Abkarian?
Yes.
Commissioner MacCarley?
Yes.
Commissioner Astoria?
Yes.
Chair Hartunian?
Yes. Just one comment. I do like the program and what it stands for. The beginning, the first job for underrepresented people. I like the program. Okay, what's the next item?
Notification of employee bargaining groups regarding Civil Service Commission agenda items.
Okay, Ms. Martin, please.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, at the March 9th meeting earlier this year, Civil Service Commission meeting, Chair Hartunian requested information on the process of providing notification to the respective employee bargaining groups regarding items placed on the commission agenda. The item was agendized for the May 11th commission meeting, but was pulled and postponed to this meeting. As has been a longstanding practice, the Human Resources Department does notify the employee association groups of any upcoming items to be placed on the agenda that may impact the employees in the respective bargaining groups. This includes job bulletins for approval that seek to modify minimum requirements, or requests to post open job bulletins like one we had this evening, when the prior job bulletin posted was done on a promotional basis, as well as the revised or new class specifications. In order to provide the bargaining groups with time to review the proposed items and provide feedback, the assigned staff members attempt to provide the item to the impacted bargaining groups as early as possible. When the item is sent to the association president or the union representative, they will typically reach out to their association board members or shop stewards and determine if there are any questions or concerns with the proposed item. And if there are, they will reach out to human resources staff to seek some clarification. And most of the time, the questions that come up, we are able to address and work collaboratively toward a resolution. And if the matter is not resolved, the association, the representatives, or the employees certainly have the ability to attend commission meeting and address the commission and voice their concerns before commission. And this is essentially in response to Chair Hartunian's request to provide an explanation of what our process is. Tonight we have Allison Finch, president of the GMA, here. Orlando Urquidez, the president of the GCA, was planning on being here tonight, but unfortunately he had a last-minute conflict and expressed his regret, but he was not able to join us. He was present at the meeting when this item was originally agendized. So should the commission have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. My staff is here. Again, Ms. Finch is here as well, if the commission has any questions for her.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Question? Comments?
I'm going to have Ms. Finch actually approach the microphone, if you don't mind. Yes. Don't worry, it's harmless. Very harmless. I think that the reason that the Chair Hartunian actually brought this up was that we were told sometimes that, you know, the management and employee associations are being contacted, and we just didn't know what the process was, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so has there been any issues at all in reference to communication with your group in reference to any items that come out of the HR department that you know of?
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, no, we actually have a really great working relationship with our HR director, with Aymee, as well as her staff. And, you know, we have each other's numbers and, you know, emails, and we don't sit very far from each other in the city. And so, no, we work very well together in communication and the items that do come up. You know, we've always expressed that, you know, if they can get them to us as soon as possible, that always helps with review. And they've been, you know, very accommodating to get those to us. So we do have ample time to review. We do understand that when things are on a tighter deadline, we do work really, you know, really closer together to really get things done, because, you know, we are obviously in very support of the city and the, you know, the items that they take forward to make sure that things get done in the city. So no, we have a great working relationship. I really do value that. And the communication is great. And then if there are changes or adjustments made to different bulletins, you know, after the first initial contact is made, the analyst or whoever's working on it is very good about contacting me and letting me know, so that way we always have the latest draft to review.
Thank you. So, yes, once again, I want to thank Ms. Martin for preparing this report, and Ms. Finch for being here, answering the questions, and Commissioner MacCarley was correct. My initial request, my interest in this report was I wanted to have a better understanding how the process works, and I wanted to make sure that the bargaining groups are okay with the process. There are no concerns and comments, and it's more of a due process issue for me. I wanted to know when we hear they were notified, if there was proper notice, timely, and if there were any if there were times maybe in recent history where an item was on the agenda and any of the bargaining groups weren't given the opportunity to comment, or it was too short of a time to comment. So those were the concerns I wanted to address, if any of the other bargaining groups have it. And obviously, if they're not here, I would welcome them somehow to communicate, and if they have any concerns, to come and speak. And I appreciate, and I'm very happy that you have a great relationship, and we really wish it continues to be so. And yeah, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Martin, again.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thank you for looking at this item. It does mean a lot to our groups as well, that you guys have the interest in making sure. But
Absolutely.
yes, we have a great working relationship, and I'm very thankful for that.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Employee job performance evaluation process.
Okay, Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, also during the March 9th meeting, Chair Hartunian requested a report from the HR department seeking an explanation on the details of how evaluations are processed in order to better learn and understand the overall process and procedures. This evening, I have Ms. Naira Kopian, HR Compliance Officer, to provide information regarding the overall process, including timelines, processing, and reporting.
Thank you. And again, thank you for preparing this report. I know I asked for this for the same reason. I wanted to, again, for myself and for my fellow commissioners, in case they were at the same level of understanding, but I'm sure they're way more advanced than I am. But I wanted to understand the process, and I wanted to make sure that these reports and reviews are done in proper time. Employees have opportunity to review and respond and comment. And with that, thank you for being here. And if you want to, I don't know if I have any specific questions right now, but if you want to educate us more about the process, please do.
Good evening, Chair Hartunian and members of the commission. I just would like to give a brief synopsis of the report. Evaluations, in essence, are assigned to employees at the time they are appointed to the position. Once the evaluation records are assigned, HR staff on a monthly basis generate cover sheets, which are in essence a high-level summary of what the evaluation the employees will receive. These cover sheets are generated 1.5 months in advance of due date and are distributed to department liaisons who assist our department in then distributing further down to supervisors. Supervisors have the 1.5 months plus an additional 30-day grace period to complete the evaluations, as well as obtain all the applicable signatures and return it back to our office for recording purposes. In the meantime, our staff follow up and send reminders continuously to be able to receive the evaluations back. If they are late beyond the 30-day, they are reported on a monthly basis to the commission.
Thank you. And are there any occasions that an employee reaches out to HR or to a specific department with concerns that they haven't received their evaluations, they haven't had an opportunity to comment on their evaluations? Do these things happen?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of circumstances such as that from happening.
That's good. Yeah, again, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to understand this process, because I want to make sure when people are evaluated, they have the opportunity to have their input. And
I want to understand your question. Is it that, has there been a time where an employee was supposed to be given a, well, let's say, a one-year evaluation, and they weren't given that evaluation until the second year? Like they were just not given an evaluation that year? So is that what you're asking? You're asking this?
I wasn't asking that, but that's a good question too, if that happens. I think I was asking if they're being evaluated, and
Are you aware of a situation where an employee was just not given an evaluation that year at all?
Actually,
Since I took on the role of supervising the evaluation desk, I've implemented quarterly reports that I myself generate to identify any potential anomalies or errors that may have occurred during data entry. And we try to catch them and fix them before that happens.
And how long?
And Chair Hartunian, I think your initial question was, is there an opportunity for the employee to grieve? And the answer to that is yes.
Correct,
So
yeah,
if
that
an
was my
employee does not
question.
receive an evaluation, they do have an opportunity to grieve that.
Correct.
And
My
my second question was, so my follow-up question
That was
was.
different than what my
Yes.
question was. Mine was more like if somebody has been evaluated and maybe they haven't been given the opportunity to respond to their evaluation, and if they show up at some point saying, hey, what happened? This is the second year or after the time where I should have received my opportunity to respond and I haven't.
Correct. There is an opportunity for the employee to grieve, and that grievance can come all the way up to the Civil Service Commission
Okay,
in accordance with the Civil Service rules.
correct, okay.
And the employee is just not given an evaluation at all that year, then they have a right to just basically file directly with the Civil Service Commission saying, hey, we weren't given any opportunity to even get an
Correct.
evaluation.
Correct. They would go through a grievance process, just like any other grievance process.
Okay.
Okay, and Ms. Akopian, you mentioned ever since you've been in the position, you have implemented systems, and how long has that been?
After we, shortly after 2018.
Okay.
We've been doing it every quarter, actually.
And based on what you're saying, you've never known of any evaluation that was not done in the year that it was supposed to have been done? Like somebody was just missed an evaluation?
Typically, the evaluations are connected to steps, so if someone does not get a step, we're notified ahead
You
of
got a
time.
problem, because they won't get the raise that they're supposed to get.
Exactly.
Got it.
But I'm not aware of any.
Okay, I don't think I have any other questions. Again, Ms. Martin, thank you very much. This helps me understand and hopefully serve better on this commission. Thank you, and my fellow commissioners don't have any more questions, comments.
Thank you, Chair Hartunian. I actually need to extend my appreciation to Ms. Akopian, who put together the report.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, yeah, thank you. I just have one more comment, sorry. Because this was something that I brought up a couple of times. Now that we know that the grace period is not 60 days, it's 30 days, actually. Why shouldn't the first notice be 30, second notice be 60, and third notice be 90? I don't know why we have it at 60, 90, and 120 when the initial notice deadline is actually 30. So your initial first notice should be 30, second notice should be 60, and the third notice should be 90. And I would like to make a proposal, now that we have this item on the agenda, that we change it to 30, 60, and 90, instead of 60, 90, and 120.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Abkarian, are we talking about 30 days from the date the evaluation is due?
Well, the way we have the reports given to us, I was told that it was 60 days, but the deadline is 30 days from the date that it's due,
Yes,
right? That is correct.
grace period, yes.
Grace period is 30 days. So you sent out the evaluations to the managers 45 days before it's due,
Yes.
or somewhere in that, point. So 45 days before it's due, you send out the evaluations, correct? And so they have the evaluation for 45 days or so. We say, hey, listen, get ready. 45 days is coming. You need better do an evaluation. Then a deadline comes. Now the clock runs for another 30 days, correct?
Yes.
And their deadline is 30 days, right? So what I'm saying is that our first notice should be at 30 days, which is the deadline. Then the second notice would be 60 days. And then the third notice would be 90 days, and the department head has to show up in front of us if they go over 60 days.
That is how it is. Any day beyond 30 days, you're on first notice. So 31 to 59, you're on first notice. 61 to 89, second notice, and then 90 and beyond is third notice.
Oh, I got what you're saying. They're really
It's
not on any
aging.
notice until that 30th day
Yes.
hits. And then you give them another 30 days, then they're on the first notice.
They have
The
30
minute
days
you
to
hit
complete
31.
to begin with.
Yeah, they're actually not in default in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
I got it, I got what you're saying. Okay, all right, that makes sense. So they're not on default until the 30th day hit, then they're on default, basically. Then you give them an extra 30 days for the first notice, then you give them okay, I got it, okay.
And if I may, Commissioner Upkarian, this was actually a change that was recommended by you a few years ago, and we reduced it to this
I
structure.
want to reduce it more. Why shouldn't a manager in 45 days before and 30 days after have the actual evaluation done in over 2.5 months? I don't get it. I don't get why an employee should sit there and wait for an evaluation to be done, not exactly within the 30 days that it's allowed under the rules. That's why it just drives me crazy. I'm not a manager and I don't have huge, but somebody like, the police department has 328 employees, does not have any first notices, and, somebody, information services then does with 40 employees. So it just drives me crazy that the managers would let an employee sit there when they've had the notice for almost 2.5 months. That's my comment. I think I'm just rambling here.
Thank you again. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for the report, Ms. Akopian. Thank you for your help in answering the questions. I feel I'm a better commissioner today now than I started earlier today. So thank you. What's next?
Reports?
Ms. Martin.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is the past due evaluation report. Consistent with the item we just covered, there are 10 departments that have no past dues and departments that have a total of, there are 12 evaluations on first notice. This is a note and file item. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. The 12 first notices are derived from 4 departments, and again, the departments do try to get these to us in a timely manner, but certain times, for reasons due to conflicts or workload, sometimes these are delayed. But we do not have any on second or third notice, which would require the department head to appear before the commission.
Thank you. Mr. Akarian? Okay, I think that's all we got today.
Civil Service Commission staff comments.
I just want to add an item to maybe the October agenda if possible, Mr. Chair, with your permission, depending on how you organize it, either October or November. I want to bring back, now that I saw this unclassified list, it just kind of juggled memories from Mr. Coleman, Commissioner Coleman that was here. So I would like to have a report as to how many unclassified employee positions we have and how many years we've had those unclassified. So either continuous or not continuous, how many unclassified jobs we have and for how many years they've been unclassified. And then I like no exceptions, every department, we wanted to see that report and see the years and which departments they are, and then take a look at those and see if we need to turn any of those unclassified into classified if they've been doing it for unclassified for too many years. Okay.
I have no objections to that.
Thank you. We will agendize that for sometime in October.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Night, everyone.
Maybe it's the way you play